Okay, so that's the unfiltered opinion. I'm bored of Lewis and Songko, and it's the season of Lewis and Songko. But now I'm gonna try to be a little more balanced and just go through each episode one by one real quick, unless I think it's worth more than that. I will say ahead of time that Season 7 definitely isn't bad. The way it's clearly trying actually reminds me a lot of Season 4, which was another slow starter that eventually found its groove in a big way. So fingers crossed for that, but in the meantime, from a critic first and a fan second, here's the second opinion. Like I've said before, it was really nice to see Twilight and Celestia finally spend some time together, and there were some pretty funny moments. But at least as many of them were just plain corny. All the different character bits it tried to cram in there felt pretty disjointed, and honestly, the way they're trying to reinvent Celestia has to be the single cheesiest thing. But more on that later. C+. I agree with pretty much everything good that people say about Starlight and Trixie here. Their uptight meets reckless abandon chemistry is fun, the bad habits we've seen from them in the past coming back is a great example of writers building on what they have to work with, and the moral is all in all pretty solid. But even so, it is pretty much your typical follow-up to the season premiere, giving everyone a role, laying out what we can expect from them, going at an even pace without shooting for the moon, yeah. Plus, the main six and their subplot make for pretty bland syrup. That's good for a B. I give this one credit for giving Princess Scrappy Doo some much-needed character beyond the bouncing baby hijinks. Making her a bright and thoughtful kid with a certain baby logic behind what she does goes a long way in making her more fun to watch. But that said, the point still ends up being the bouncing baby hijinks. 4 times over, with pretty much the same idea each time. Then it tries to make excuses for them by putting it back on Twilight for daring to take the baby on her trip running errands! There might have been room for a moral about not biting off more than you can chew, but they don't do enough to justify how this qualifies as such a scenario. Unless you really aren't allowed to tell Flurry, no, you can't do that. Otherwise, I guess the elbow and the ribs to modern art was cute. C+. Okay, putting him on with Starlight, good. That's a perfect next step for this character who's just been growing on us really well from her very first appearance. And I hope you can tell I mean Maud. Because, yeah, every episode she's that much more comfortable to be around, like we're just that much closer to her, without making her any less funny or any less dry. This time we even see her start to open up.
I could handle some less exciting rocks if it meant I'd have some pony to talk to besides Boulder.
Are you saying you want a friend?
I wouldn't mind one.
And yeah, her scenes bonding with Starlight, who also prefers to keep her emotions on the down low, feel right in keeping. They're odd, but sweet, just like these two. It's all very freeform. I really could have watched an entire episode of just this, with all the highs and lows these two would end up going through and becoming friends. So why did we need Pinkie Pie forcing in a "you don't understand" conflict with her forced, frantic, unfunny gags? Rule of thumb, if the conflict can't be there without a character just plain being an idiot, then it's not a very good conflict. I didn't mind Mystery on the Friendship Express, where Pinkie had a good reason to think the wrong characters did the crime, and her overeager silliness was just icing on the cake. Plus, that was actually funny, but she stands out like a sore hoof here. I mean, come on, Nick Confalone, I know you have a weakness for comedy like this, but the Pinkie doesn't understand thing completely takes over by the end. Like, we can only handle so much smart, unique storytelling before we demand the mediocre? Nah, when did this show start thinking like that? We know where the real meat's at. We've got more memes, more references, world building. Like, you never saw this place before, right? That's cool, isn't it? And, you know, like having the characters accomplish their goals. You know, like, just get it over with already. That sounds special, right? Actually, bits like Maud's graduation and the return of Ghastly Gorge show how this season does understand the real value of world building. Trotting out a place we haven't seen before, like a colorful new toy, is all well and good, but what makes your world feel complete and filled in is when you build on what we've already seen, make it feel like it's all part of an expanding, ongoing picture. It helps give us a sense that this really is another world we're in, not like a gumball machine that might give us the same flavor twice, but either way, we're just supposed to chew on it for a minute, throw it away, and move on. So yeah, good job. Good job. Another B. This episode walks a very thin line between slice of life and just plain underwritten. bunny parkour, so too many animals at the vet, so Fluttershy always wanted to make an animal sanctuary, so helpers who sort of wish she spoke their language more, so she flat out fires them when they go against her wishes and mess it up, proving that she's assertive now, and then she has to trust her expertise enough to not only say that it was the right call, but oversee the project the rest of the way through.
They're here, then they're here.
But at the same time, look at what a tricky scenario this is. Look at how morally ambiguous it is. In another one like it, one of those experts might have legitimately been seeing something that wasn't going to work. And even as is, it would have been so easy to just let them have their way. They, and the friends, are all working for this too, and they all like the expert's approach just fine. To say no to that takes a whole different kind of confidence. The confidence that you've worked at something enough to know what you're talking about. And I think the reason we see Fluttershy dismiss the three right before we see what their sanctuary would have done is to show us that, yeah, when something important is riding on it, on you, and you have legitimate reasons to worry, it's important to use your best judgment and assert yourself, even though it won't always be clear-cut and easy. Sometimes that's what it takes to lead. Sometimes, well...
Sometimes, all we need to do is believe in our dreams. And when we finally reach our goal, the view will be even better than you imagined.
Still, it's only the last few parts that don't feel like they could have been changed up without losing anything, so it feels too nonchalant to get that much emotion out of me. I mean, the audience can't do all the work in watching something for their entertainment. But nonetheless, the underlying message has just enough muscle to pull it out of the C range. B-. For the most part, this one fits right in with the other solid but unspectacular episodes. The conflict with these two doesn't hit as close to home as it could have, especially since the whole thing is a little hammed up. The moral is obvious and pretty straightforward. Sweetie Belle is still in her boring experimental teen phase, because the show is still in its experimental phase with her. Yeah. All except for one thing. Rarity. She is absolutely at the top of her game here. The intro by itself had me falling for how funny, but also how lovable and sympathetic she could be all at the same time. Even in the scenes pushing us through the usual paces, she gets in a few of those moments that could have only come from her, and she stops it from feeling too flat. So yeah, definitely my favorite up to this point. B+. Seriously, what the heck happened? Rainbow's parents were a hot streak of inspiration in that first act with Scootaloo. It was so funny, so energized, such a dead-on elbow on the ribs of parents like this. And it managed to do it without turning them into caricatures. They weren't stupid or oblivious. It actually really fit that Rainbow Dash had parents like these. But by the end, it was like a bad imitation of itself. They were oblivious. They were idiots. The gags were just hoping that dumber and more over the top equals funnier. It was obnoxious. Even the reveal of the backstory was off enough so that you could argue this episode didn't succeed at all. Still, MLP at the top of its game is something special. Even if it's only for 1/3 of the episode, it's one of few points here I can call a season highlight. B-. In his own way, Big Mac has come along pretty well as a character, and giving him a girlfriend, especially someone we already know, makes for a really fun and sweet step forward. So like rock-solid friendship, why did we need an annoying character forcing it to be a boring, typical plot? Of all the stories about Big Mac's first girlfriend, love triangle hijinks with a Justin Bieber pony is a pretty weak choice. But at least it still ends up being a nice step for Big Mac, so B-. Actually, for as much grief as people give Applejack here, I did find her to be more her lovable self than she's been in a while, and the enthusiasm with the new characters and some of the little gags is clear to see. But yeah, the portion where they start overplaying her again, and her comedy for that matter, is downright painful. And the moral, while true and much needed in today's world, gets more than a little blurred, especially since they seem to take it a step too far. There is a time for hard truths when it comes to judging quality, and ignoring that completely is where I can't say this episode entirely got the job done. I do like it better than Hard to Say Anything, but then I don't really like it as much as Rock Solid Friendship, so... Well, you've been waiting for this one. Yeah, let's get this over with. What can I say? It's the new toy episode in high demand. It's shiny, it's flashy, it's... cheap. The fan service here feels just plain gimmicky. Even when they try to set it up with a plot point, it doesn't feel like they're tying it into the plot like Do Princesses Dream of Magic Sheep or even Slice of Life. It feels like they're making an excuse for it. Like how Nightmare Moon shows up because Starlight has a nightmare about fan service. We've never seen her even talk about Nightmare Moon. But then again, heck, even the plot points that aren't fan service are like that. Like the whole episode was made by the writers just going back and forth like, hey, like, wouldn't it be really cool if, like, this happened too somehow? Oh yeah, sure, throw that in there. Like, what does it do when it realizes there's an obvious hole to having Starlight kick off the Switch Places gimmick plot by just randomly forcing it on Celestia and Luna? I mean, besides the fact that that's really ham-fisted and lazy. Well, they can't just order her to switch them back because that's just not how it works. This is a special spell with a built-in time limit. Or how about when it realizes that none of this dream battle actually matters? They wake up, nightmare's over, they talk it out and move on.
If you don't fix this soon, it could have a grave consequence on Starlight's psyche.
Oh, whoa, now this just feels like a totally different scenario than the one it was 2 seconds ago. I mean, you just shot the tension through the roof with that one. Never mind what it is about Starlight's psyche this is actually supposed to be hurting, or why it's this of all things that's traumatizing enough to do that. You dream about bad guy versions of the princesses having a big flashy fight, irreversible damage to your psyche. I know, maybe I need to lighten up. I mean, alright, I never gave the Fast and Furious movies trouble for making no sense when they did something that was awesome, and hey, if it's awesome, maybe they don't need to explain it. Maybe we can just feel why it works. Alright, maybe I should try just sitting back, being thrilled.
Can you handle Daybreaker?
Daybreaker? I mean, I know Nightmare Moon is a mouthful, but you're going with a name pun? She sounds like a Captain Planet villain. Daybreaker? Okay, and what is the reason for this sudden appearance of a counterpart to Nightmare Moon, one of the most beloved and fanfiction stories in the whole community?
If Luna can turn into Nightmare Moon, you can absolutely turn into me.
Ah, thanks for clearing that up. I mean, thank goodness they caught this before it actually happened to Celestia.
You can't destroy me. I'm everything you want to be. You are not real, and you will never exist again.
That's totally where they're going with this, isn't it? Yeah, probably. Well, that'll be an interesting day. But no, she's even stronger than Nightmare Moon, and sassier! Look at all the new things she can do! Please, this is the Spinosaurus thing from Jurassic Park 3, almost note for note. Cheap attempt at one-upsmanship. Yeah, it takes more than an okay fight scene and some cool new tricks. I had to stop myself from laughing out loud when someone tried to tell me that this was just as well written, if not better, than the other Princess episodes, like Luna Eclipsed or Do Princesses Dream of Magic Sheep. Both of those episodes tied together every step of their conflicts across the entire runtime. Why Luna was hurting, what the stakes that depended on her succeeding were, how everything went wrong in the first place, what this told us about her character, what she had to do and was able to do to stop it. It's no comparison. What they do with Celestia here... Okay. Not that Twilight wasn't cheesy enough in this one, but it's been a long time since Lesson Zero and the funny, sympathetic, relatable character arc it made out of this. Flanderizing her and calling it personality isn't really new by this point. But Celestia is a whole nother animal. I was actually willing to roll with it when the season opener decided to forget her old wise and motherly persona and do its own thing. The other seasons all passed on their chance to explore that Celestia, and it's about time they gave her some kind of further development. But then this episode kept hitting me over the head with how she's only pretending she's so confident, how she's secretly so annoyed at her sister, how much she puts on an act for those dignitaries and needs someone to tell her that she doesn't always have to be perfect. Oh, her old persona has everything to do with this. This season and its two editors, who have the writing credits on both of Celestia's major episodes, are all too eager to show us they understand the rule of thumb on how flaws equals interesting. They want to take Celestia's character and reverse engineer it to show us how every last bit of it somehow just wasn't the real her. And as I said before, it is the single cheesiest thing. Every single moment just feels like them poking us in the forehead going, see? She's not perfect. She's not proper. She's not more mature. She's not anything you thought she was. Okay, so like I said, while I can see why people would find this one awesome, to me it does feel gimmicky, like it's just trying to do an impression of something awesome. Like in Celestia's case, I do like seeing a mentor's relatable side, but I just don't agree that it's as simple as showing us it's really all an act, or she can't be like that all the time, and then saying she's more relatable now. Like, look at Mr. Miyagi. He's a very wise and mature character, but we also see his silly side and his vulnerable side. Or heck, look at Master Roshi, a very flawed and silly character who can also be very wise and mentorly. Neither of them feel like different characters in those moments. They're not fakers. We can see how what they do and what they've been through make this a part of who they are. When it's extreme, we see what pushes them to that point. This feels like it's trying to flip the script on Celestia, but it doesn't treat it like a big reveal. It acts like it just goes without saying that this is her, like it has total contempt for the way she came across before. And worse, it's so focused on that, it doesn't actually give us a strong sense of character from the new Celestia. I mean, not perfect, not mature, and not always secure doesn't actually tell us anything about what she is. Even in her most heated scenes, we don't get the sense that any of these flaws are particularly a sign of what she's like. She gets a little pissy here, a little awkward there, and the only thing that any of it has in common is contradicting what she was before. In fact, I actually feel like we got more and better character out of that version of Celestia, even if that's only saying so much.
A thousand pardons, Your Majesty.
That's quite all right, thank you.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. We have so much to catch up on.
Well, I want you right by my side the entire evening, so we'll have plenty of time together.
That's just what I was hoping you'd say. To lose friends and feel left out
Can actually be the thing that helps you make your closest friends and realize how special you are.
So yeah, a lot of this does feel like the cheap and colorful candy that got old a long time ago. But on the other hand, sometimes I like me some candy. Like for one, Luna's still pretty good as always here. Her taking Celestia's job for a day is actually an idea from a fan-favorite comic, and while it was done better there, this still isn't half bad. Good character bits, some decent comedy, all good fun. And how we still see her sincerely worrying about letting others down is a pretty nice touch. Plus, some of these visuals really are cool. Yes, including Nightmare Moon and Daybreaker's never-before-seen powers. Not my favorite, but like I said, sometimes I like me some candy. B-. I'm still gonna get a lot of hate for that, aren't I? Now, I made it pretty clear that I hated the Axe in their first episode when it aired, but honestly, there really wasn't anything to get mad at here. I mean, don't get me wrong, there was a lot of bad, eye-rolling comedy.
How did you get Prince Rutherford to invite you? I subtly hinted for an invitation in my letters to him. May I please come to Yick's Fest? Pretty please? Pretty please? Pretty please? Pretty please? Just play it cool. We didn't help fix Yak Yak instead. No. We're just here for the snow sandwiches.
But there was also a lot of good comedy, and the acts weren't nearly as obnoxious or one-note this time.
Is this part of the festival?
Big Boney asked too many questions. That is century-old sacred yak twig.
Oh no! I'm so sorry! I was just trying to get into the spirit of Yick's Fest. Maybe I can fix it.
You're kidding! Yak got Big Boney good.
So yeah, nothing unpleasant, the acts were a lot closer to the lovable lugs they should be, the solution was unexpectedly honest and relatable. I really didn't expect this to be the episode I had no major problems with, but, well, I guess that counts as a nice surprise. That's a B.
I've been taking advantage of your hospitality for far too long. What to do? Why don't you host the next tea party? I've got it. Why don't I host the next tea party? Hey, that's my idea. Why didn't I see that coming?
Well, maybe with good old Discord we'll catch fire yet.
I will be needing your very best tea. Your finest tea set, please. I want only the best for my friend Fluttershy. Good, but not nearly good enough for Fluttershy.
Are you sure you're friends with Fluttershy? You're friends with Fluttershy?
Well, of course we're friends. I'll have you know we're besties. What if those ponies at the tea shop and the china shop were right?
Unless it falls into an easy formula.
Strike the new stuff! I'm almost certain she likes stairs that lead somewhere. We just need some of this. And a little of that.
Yeah, it's entertaining, but it's starting to feel pretty standard.
Discord, you don't seem to be yourself today. Are you feeling all right?
Worry not. I can assure you that for the first time, I'm feeling perfectly normal.
And now the part about how she likes him just the way he is.
Let me top you off. Oops, Butterfingers.
Discord, you're starting to fade away. You're a creature of pure chaos. Being normal is destroying you. Do something chaotic before it's too late, please.
Oh, that's not good.
Well, I didn't see this coming.
Then I guess it's up to me. Okay. Oh no, I tipped over that cup.
Yeah, I've seen plenty of your cutesy Fluttershy antics. You're gonna have to do more than...
Oh my, talking with food in my mouth after taking a bite from every sandwich. How wacky.
My heart!
What would Discord do? Well, I guess he'd probably make another version of himself to bounce ideas off of. Hey there, Fluttershies! Any ideas on how to Discord up this tea party? First of all, you gotta redecorate this place. I mean, this is where Discord lives. And you're telling me there aren't any stairs that lead to nowhere? And he'd have a chaise lounge that would actually chase you because he's funny like that. Bet you can't catch me!
Wow, this is the most they ever emphasize that this is a two-sided friendship. I mean, it's really sweet, really satisfying to see.
You and I don't make sense to any pony else.
That may be true, but we make sense to me. You've opened me up to so many more possibilities and impossibilities. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, I like you because you're so different from me.
Well, what can I say? Great character portrait, it was fun, creative, you really felt it. Even if it fell into autopilot for a bit, it came up with a knockout. Season 7's on the board. A-. Well, the long-awaited story of Applejacks Parents meets the long-awaited guest starring appearance of William Shatner. Let's have it. Okay. Well, this is yet another dramatic, big event episode that's going to have everyone cheering that it's awesome and beautiful and deep and the best one ever, at least until the next one comes along. That said, at least this one can make some kind of a claim to backing that up. I mean, there are plenty of little gems to appreciate here. Some of the moments between the parents, Big Mac with his dad's old friend, Grandparent and his reconciliation, all well done. And actually, for all the build-up, this episode really doesn't try to be the definitive moment for any of these characters, or in regards to any of the morals they learn, save for maybe in the last shot. Which is probably for the best. It doesn't try to be THE story, it tries to be its own story. There's a little rose tinting going on, but mainly it just wants to show us what happened, be a good fit for what could only be one of the most important moments for the Apple family. And actually, that makes it a little harder to rate, because we've never really had an episode go for quite the same appeal, just a love story that fills in meaningful details. I mean, there's Family Appreciation Day as far as great backstory goes, but this is still a new flavor. Getting down to brass tacks, it's very well made, and what flaws I could pick out are more on the trivial side, like the ethics of rushing a marriage to save the day, or how the tree thing at the end is laying it on a little thick. And on the flip side, sweet as it is, it's not the best love story I've ever seen, or the best reconciliation story, or probably not even the best story about a son or daughter finding fulfillment and learning about their parents. Just off the top of my head, I think Steven Universe has at least managed to match it, and in technically less time at that. But instead, it's just a really good example of all of the above, and it comes together to form a really tender, fulfilling story for all of the characters involved. It's not my personal favorite, but I am very glad to have it all the same, and if it replaces Crusaders of the Lost Mark as the definitive, deep, and meaningful episode for the younger fans, I will be a happy camper. That's an A. So as it turns out, this one might really be like Season 4, which also started to hit its stride around the halfway point. No way to say for sure, but I am hopeful, and I'm looking forward to seeing if it can keep this hot streak up. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If not, submit it to Mexican Radio, I guess. And if you'd like to watch another video, click the link on the right. Otherwise, just check the description for more links, and I'll see you next time.